Hey everyone, today we're joined by a star of professional wrestling. He's been involved in the industry for over a decade, known for his time in various British wrestling promotions and WWE NXT UK. Jack, sir, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate that you're taking the time to do this. Little thing just about me. No one cares, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. I am a huge fan of NXT UK, 205 Live, and NXT. Like in that era, you had like the Cruiserweight Classic, you had the Mae Young Classic. Like to me, that was like, even though I've been watching wrestling since the 90s, that was like my biggest fandom, probably was like that genre. So, it's just, I love to be able to hear the stories from the people involved. Like, we had Alexander Wolf on recently. We had Brian Kendrick on recently, and these guys who were on, NXT 205 and NXT UK. So I really appreciate your insight, plus how you've evolved since then, because to me, that's very interesting too.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we even get into all that, though, I like to hit the plugs in the beginning and I hit the plugs at the end. Where can people check you out on social media? What else should they be checking out? Let people know.
I'm mainly active on Instagram, so Jack_Sellstrom, if you want to find me on Instagram. Can find me on Twitter as well. Again, Jack_Sellstrom on there. But keep everything up to date on Instagram more than anything else.
And I believe you're currently training people as well, helping out at a school. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I'm currently coaching at a school in Leicester called FTGU, From the Ground Up School of Wrestling. Incredible school, incredible facility, and if anyone wants to get involved in professional wrestling or you're thinking of trying it out, you're more than welcome to come down and join the great community that we have going on down there.
How often are classes at the school?
We have classes, I think it's 5 days a week. Plus my class as well, which is 6. So there's a lot of opportunity down there. Have shows go, like, it gets busier every year, but I think at the minute they've got like at least one show a month plus different events going on as well. Really cool place, really good place to learn.
From my limited experience, the best places to train are the places where they have a school or they have a promotion attached, because it means you're always going to have work to develop early on. So that's super cool. Obviously, you're extremely talented. You've been there, you've done that. Guys, check it out. And we will have links to the school. We have links to his social media and everything else in the description. So please check him out, show him support. He's being kind enough to be on the show. Show some support his way.
Thank you.
All right, so I like to start same way every interview. I grew up in the quote-unquote shoot interview era, where it was always, the Smart Mark videos, the kayfabe everything, where it was. When did you first see pro wrestling, and when did you become a fan?
So I first saw it, I must have been around maybe 8 years old. My parents used to play field hockey. So it was on Saturday morning before they left for that. I was just flipping through TV channels, and then I think it was Sky One at the time, maybe. And I remember the moment was seeing, it was Kurt Angle getting crowned King of the Ring. And it was just something that kept me on that channel. I was just instantly hooked from there. And I just really odd thought as well. Like, I knew professional wrestling was around, but I'd never really seen it on TV or anything before. But when I was literally fixated on watching Kurt just get in the ring with his crown and everything. I was like, oh, what is this? This is amazing. And I was thinking like, oh, like if he can do that, why can't I?
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel like chills going up my spine at that time. Just that instant connection with professional wrestling off that one moment. Very odd. I still feel it to this day.
See, that's so cool though, the fact that it was in the first moment, because I watched, as far as I can remember, where it sounds like we're about the same age. I'm turning 32 actually in 6 days from when we're recording. So I watched that same period, and Kurt Angle, I hated him, but I love to hate him because he was so annoying. It was great. But it was just, there was so much excitement. So I can only imagine you putting on for the first time and just right in the heat of the Attitude Era being like, what is this world that I'm seeing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and it was I was transfixed from there on. Like every weekend after that, I was same time I was on it, trying to see if I could find it again, and then it just spiraled from there.
I go off on tangents a lot, so this is going to be one of them that I'm curious about. because you're from the UK, of course. So Raw at that time, did it air live in the morning or whatever time it would be for you, and then again in a replay? Like, what was the airing schedule like? Do you know?
To be honest, around that time, I can't remember. I remember watching it on Saturday mornings. Come to think of it as well, I remember briefly seeing it. I forgot about this one. I remember briefly seeing it. We have a channel over here called Cartoon Network, and after I think it was like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., it would switch to WCW. And I remember, like, I had to go to bed then, so my parents never let me watch it. But I remember seeing like a few seconds of Hulk Hogan once. But yeah, I think it was a bit later on. It started, whether it was airing early in the morning, I didn't know about it at that point. But that's how it happened later on, anyway.
That's so interesting, and
yeah.
I understand the sensation because when I was a kid, I only saw ECW like once or twice because I never knew when it was airing. Like, it was aired so late at such random times. I was like, "What is this?" But I was hooked on the other things. Okay, a big question. You know, now that we know when you became a fan and that you wanted to wrestle from then onward, who were some of your favorite wrestlers growing up?
Oh man, I can't know this. So like the main thing I watched was WWE. That was what was on TV. So they, like, WWE was my favorite program to watch. So it was like I said off the bat, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Edge was definitely one of my favorites as well. Like there was so many for different reasons, but I'd say the ones that I was really kind of interested in, really caught my attention, were definitely Kurt and Eddie at the time.
That's interesting because, you know, this was the era where you had the larger than life Undertaker, you had Stone Cold, you had The Rock. You gravitated towards the younger guys, the more athletic guys, not taking anything away from the other because they're obviously very definitely athletic. Not. But do you think, and I don't know, were you a smaller kid at the time too, or were you like, because for example, this is hilarious. We interviewed Johnny Yuma on the channel, and he loved a lot of the smaller guys, but his first favorite was Viscera, Big Daddy V. Just completely random, even though like it's complete opposite to him. So was it a case of like you could connect more to them because of their size, or was it just because of their charisma?
I think it was a bit of everything, to be honest. Like, the thing I really liked about like Eddie and Kurt was very, very charismatic, but also incredible athletes. Just how they moved, like the legitimacy about them as well, like especially with Kurt and how he would wrestle. It was just something completely different to me, for me anyway. That's the side of wrestling that really grasped me. I love like the character stuff and everything, the larger than life characters, but the competition side of things, especially with Kurt's style, was something that grabbed me straight off.
Now, I'm not sure if you're going to have an answer for this because it sounds to me like you gravitate towards a lot of the heels, you know? But were there any wrestlers who just drove you crazy as a kid? Now, it could be because, you know, you legitimately just didn't think they were good, or the bigger thing, which is a compliment because they were such good heels that you just hated them.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, and there's a couple of moments that kind of stand out for me. I remember being a kid, and I think it was WrestleMania 20, and when I thought like Chris Jericho and Trish Stratus were together and everything, I was like, that's amazing. And then at the end of that match, when she turned on him, and I literally nearly grabbed the TV and threw it out the window. I was that angry.
That's that incredible.
Angry to see Chris Jericho doing like that. I was like,
and shout out to Trish because she just had an amazing cage match with Becky Lynch like days ago as of when we're recording this. She's someone who retired 15 years ago, and she's come back and taken ladder bumps and cage bumps, and that's passion to the business right there, because she does not need to be doing that.
No, it's incredible, man.
But it also shows, you know, what a good heel and what a good story it was for it to captivate you like that, because this was years into you watching, you were just so mad. And I'm guessing you despised Christian from that point too.
Oh, I did, yeah. Like, I was like hate. I felt it was it was something. That was something that definitely stands out. I can still feel it now as well. You know, I was that angry.
That's
definitely stood out to me.
But it's those moments too. Like, now that you know you're a professional, you've been doing this for so long, you can look back and be like, "Wow, like that's the kind of feeling I want people to have. Either that much
Yeah.
anger, that much love, or that's got to be like inspiring for you, because maybe you can't get that feeling anymore as a fan, right? Because it's natural, once you're involved in something, the passion changes. You'll still be passionate, but it's a different kind of passion. But you can probably still channel that and be like, that's what I want to give that kid in the audience.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that attracted me to professional wrestling, was be able to convey that emotion, make people feel things. So being able to feel that, like, that's how that made me feel at the time. Being able to give or portray that emotion to someone else, make them feel something. It's quite an addictive feeling to have. Like that's what I want to achieve professional wrestling, about having those moments.
Pro wrestling's weird, isn't it? Because it's such like a unique comment. It's unlike anything else. And people can say that all the time, but if you really break it down, it's like a live rock show, a live light show. You have the emotion, you have the psychology, you're playing with the crowd, you're trying to anger them, make them happy, you're putting them up and down throughout the card. And then obviously there's the athleticism behind it. There's the politics behind the scenes, trying to, there's so many aspects to what wrestling is that it's so unlike any kind of art form or sport.
Yeah, definitely. It's one big circus, that's for sure.
Now, we know that you wanted to be a wrestler right from that, first time you saw it. When did you first break into wrestling? How did you find the school? What was your in? Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, so I wanted to do it for ages. The internet, like, I didn't really get the internet till quite late. So I was, we had it in high school. We had something called MSN and stuff over here, but that's all I really dabbled in. So I never really researched or anything online. I knew it was wrestling about, but I used to work at a Laser Quest, and there was a girl that just started working there, and I was talking about pro wrestling, and one day she goes, "Oh, well, I'm a pro wrestler." I was like, "What?" So yeah, I tried training at the school in a place called Rugby, which is not far from where I live in Leicester, and she was like, "Yeah, you should come down." I was like, "This is quite a strange coincidence, this." So yeah, like the next Saturday I went down there and I started training, and that was like late summer 2009, maybe. Yeah, around then.
So what did she actually have matches? And if so, what was her ring name? Just so in case anybody will remember
her. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I cannot remember her ring name. I can see it in my head, but
no worries. No worries. Totally
fair. She definitely had matches and stuff. She's more like ballet and stuff in that particular promotion. So
I mean, plus, women's wrestling, even from that time on, has evolved so much. Their role, they've so much more opportunity. And we'll definitely talk more about how the UK scene has changed later on, but I'm sure that's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
So with the school, what was the school that you actually went to, and who were you training with? Or training
under? So the school, what was the school called? It's called like the Impact Wrestling School or something. Impact Wrestling Training. But the actual promotion was called WAR, the Wrestling Association of Rugby. Yeah, and they trained, I believe it was every Saturday. Used to go down there on a Saturday morning. But the coaches there were two brothers. One was called Simon Platt, Stuart Platt, and there was a guy called Rayner as well. So it was quite a few people there. A few different coaches as well for different levels. Yeah, I trained there for just under a year, maybe.
What was an average day training there like, and roughly how many students do you have in the class? Because it can very much vary though in the terms of numbers. Sometimes you'll have school with 4 students, or you'll have a school with 25 students.
From what I remember, it was quite busy every week that I went, because they only had the one class. It must have been at least 15 to 25. Like I said, they had the 3 different coaches. They had this grading system where you'd be ticked off when you were competent at certain things, and then maybe you'd move to the next class, and then the next class up, and then you'd be deemed show ready, whenever they saw fit.
So was everyone like the same experience level in your class, or was it like a mix of different?
Oh, it was definitely a mix. Like they had like a beginner's class with I started off in. There was maybe 2 or 3 of us in there, and then I picked it up very quickly. So they kind of moved me on to the next one, and yeah, kind of spiraled from there.
So what was the average day of training like? Were they one of the schools where as soon as you start, they don't have you go in the ring right away? You're mostly just doing stretches, doing stuff on the mat, or were they have you running the ropes the first day? One of those schools.
One thing over here is with the schools I went to anyway. To start with, we didn't have I didn't have a ring for years. We trained on little gym like blue gym mats. Like first time I think I got in a ring was the day before my first show.
Oh, wow.
We had like an in-ring training day, and then it was a show the next day. But all up until that point, we trained on little blue gym mats and crash mats and things like that.
Just taking bumps on them. I'm guessing a lot of chain wrestling.
Yeah, we did a little bit of chain wrestling. It was more like from what I remember from the school, we'd learn to bump, on the crash mats, all kinds of bumps, things like that. Maybe like hip tosses, body slams, and then everything to get a little bit madder. But we did a little bit of wrestling there. Yeah, the more technical wrestling would come later on when I'd move schools.
As far as psychology, promo work, camera stuff, was it a school that taught a lot about that, or was it more the foundation, getting the basics out of you?
What I remember, it was mainly the basics. I remember doing the promo class. I didn't really like the promo thing because I'm a very, very shy person, especially back then. It's really weird that I became a professional wrestler because I had crippling stage fright. So to actually like go out there half naked now and perform in front of however many people is quite bizarre to me. But I remember my first experience with promos. We kind of had everyone in a line. I can't remember if they had a subject or anything, but had to. I think one of the coaches stood there and you had to look at them, and you basically had one shot at doing this promo. And I remember going up there and I stumbled my words, and this went next. And it kind of like crushed me a little bit. So I felt embarrassed doing that in front of everyone and then going to stand at the back of the line. I didn't really like that format, but that's the first thing I remember, like promo wise there. I think I only did the one. That was my only memory of doing promos at that school.
So as far as your training goes, because now that you're a trainer, I'm not a trainer, clearly. So I'm not sure where this will lie, but in my head, different people are better with positive reinforcement. Some are better with negative reinforcement. It just kind of depends on the person. But on the other hand, I could also see an argument, no one's good with negative reinforcement, or nobody's good with positive reinforcement. Different coaches handle things differently. How did your school treat you, and how do you work with students in that regard?
I think it's definitely fluctuated throughout my experience getting trained. The first place, it was everything was from what I remember, it was very positive. It was a good community of people and supportive of each other. But there were times where you get drilled. Mm-hmm. This is later on. You get drilled to the point where work as hard as you can, and then it went very, very much. It kind of changed into a more nurturing environment. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Is that what you tried to
instill? Times changed, mentality changed of it. But as I progressed and started coaching myself, I think like you have to be able to adapt to who you're working with. I definitely went through the kind of drill sergeant phase because that's how I trained myself. And I thought to myself, I was very narrow-minded in the sense of like I can treat myself this way, and I train myself this way within like just get it done. Work hard, no excuses kind of mentality. Which now I'm in a more understanding. I'll push people to their abilities, do what you can, and they're going to progress at their own rate. So everyone works at a different rate. Like some people get it straight off the bat. Some people take a little longer. So you've got to be able to adapt to those situations.
That must be such an interesting line to toe too, because again, everybody's different. So how they learn, how they react to everything. And, some people are just, unfortunately, they're never going to get it, at least to the degree other people are, right?
I totally agree. So it's not for everyone. It's a very demanding sport. Very demanding.
Yeah. In that regard, as someone who's done training, have you ever had to, say, maybe this isn't, the role for you, or is that mostly for somebody else, to handle?
I've never personally had that conversation with one. Like, I've always, I don't think I word it. I don't like giving up on people in that way, or I just, sorry man, I got a bit blank then.
It's tough because you don't want to take away somebody's dream on them. You know what I mean? So
that's it. I always put myself into that scenario. Like, how would I like someone to treat me? And I wouldn't ever want anyone to give up on me. So, you don't know how close you are, to actually succeeding. Some people are very disheartened, but that close to getting it. I'm very much a, like, let's have a go at it again, or approach from a different avenue, and just keep trying again. I'm a repetition kind of person. I wasn't, like, when I first started, I wasn't an amazing professional wrestler, or just like the thought speaking to you like this. It's a repetition thing. It's just go again, brush yourself off, go again until we get it.
No, absolutely. And that applies to a lot of stuff too. If someone keeps working, they're dedicated, they're passionate, hopefully it'll click for them one day. I want to talk about your first match, because there's kind of two, and I definitely want you to talk about both and kind of clarify the difference. My understanding is that your first technical match was a gauntlet match back in July 10th, 2010 with the Judge. Before we get into your real pro debut, can we talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. Came around quite like start 2010. Right, okay, this is going to happen in July, so it was a goal to work to, and we spent like months planning this match. It was like a couple of minutes, if that, and there was a lot of, like, the new trainees coming through at the time, so most of the more promising trainees were in this match. Had a little small part into it, and I was added to that. So yeah, the day came. I was like, this. It felt like my WrestleMania. Very, very grateful for the opportunity that they selected me for that. I was the last guy in as well to face the Judge. I had all my family and friends and everything there. I can still remember it pretty clearly, to be honest. It was probably one of the most nerve-wracking days of my life at the time. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing, to be honest, as well. But we got it done, and it was my first in-ring experience, should we say.
That's what I love to hear, because, again, it's just the contrast to people. And one of the best things about getting to interview people is you can see, some people are totally terrified and not ready. Some people are terrified but ready. Some people aren't ready, but they think they are ready. You know what I mean? So the contrast is always so funny. So you were worried, but it went well.
Yep, I think it went as well as it could have gone at the time. Yeah, it's like, now, just the thought of thinking back a bit. Like, I've seen the footage back of it, and I'd quite happily throw it in a treasure chest and throw it to the bottom of the deepest parts of the ocean, to never to be seen again. But it's I'm very grateful for that experience and those guys there, because they really did help me build a confidence within myself to then progress.
And that was after what, about a year of training, I believe?
Just under a year. Yeah, I got to a point just after that show where I literally went up to her and asked them straight. I was like, I want to go to WWE. Can you guys help me do that? And they were honest enough to say to me, like, we won't be able to do that here. So you need to go and train maybe in Leicester with Robbie Brookside, because he's the man with that kind of connection.
That is very fascinating, because he would play a big role later on. I already know, but I'm going to throw a little spoiler out there. A big role in a few things. What was it like training with him back then?
Quite terrifying. I was, he was such a presence about him. And I was definitely, for the first while at least, I was definitely on edge around him, because I just wanted to impress. Like, this scary man is telling me to do this, I need to get it right. But but the knowledge that man has and just learning from him was absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely changed the game for me. I found a side of wrestling that I didn't know existed at the time, and I just fell in love with it even more.
You might know this better than me. Timeline wise, from when he was working with WWE and when he was training with you, do you know roughly how that works?
I'll be 100% sure. Like, he's obviously had really good connections with WWE, worked WCW a couple of times. He was also doing, I believe he was a talent scout at one point, because there was a few times I remember in my early days of training, he'd go to like WWE TV, and he had a couple of matches there or backstage roles, and he also took a few guys from the wrestling school. So I don't know if he was actually what's the word?
Like officially with them?
Yeah, I don't think he was officially with them, but it was. I think he had a close working relationship with them.
And then when he eventually does go on to work with them full time, in your head, are you thinking, well, this is great because I couldn't have a better connection, a better in than somebody I literally trained with being a trainer there?
Yeah. So I trained with him for, I think, about 3 years before he actually went. So I got a good amount of time with him, and as I said with the moon, I remember the PC. They would say they were taking him over to come check the PC out. It was just opening up, and he came back and he was out of, I'm going to be moving to America, because they liked him that much, and he's just that good of a coach and a good of a wrestling mind that they didn't want to let him go, so they got him over there full time, and he's been there ever since. But yeah, like I said, it's incredible connection to have. WWE was, like, it's always been my number one goal in wrestling, my absolute obsession. So when I found out he was going to be a coach there full time, it was like, right, because he was coming back as well, and he was kind of giving us the standard of how things were, like what you need to do, especially like the fitness side of things, the drills or the rolls.
That's such valuable insight.
Oh yeah. The wrestling school at the time, like when I first started training, we trained once a week on a Sunday, and like this is one of the greatest men, greatest professional wrestlers this country's ever produced, and there was like 4 people turning up to these training classes, and we were training on these little blue mats. Like, we got incredible time on the mat and stuff with Rob, but as soon as he went to America and he had that connection, now there was the amount of people turning up to that training school when he was back was it was ludicrous, because they obviously wanted those eyes on them as well. So it was really good for everyone. Get to meet a lot of new people and train different people, and it did world wonders for the school and everything like that. So
very cool and very good for the scene. But it is interesting how he was already a legend in the area, but there were so few people utilizing it and accessing that. It's really interesting that it took I have a possible into WWE for people to jump over, while you were like, no, I already want to jump over because I know how important he is and how good he is.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I realized it at the time, but what we were getting taught there was just so different. It was, it is a dying art. Like, the British wrestling style is used by so few these days, and to a standard that Rob performed at. So getting to learn from the man with these, just a treasure trove of knowledge, and getting to learn this incredible style that no one else is really doing now. That's looking back on it now, it's such a different style. It stands out. It's, anyone that learned from him and learned those things will, it stands strong. You can stand out on the wrestling scene anywhere you go.
That's super cool. And we're probably going to hopefully get to this. As you can tell with the interview, I go off and go in the weeds on so many things. I'm never going to get through all the notes. Never, ever. But one thing I do want to, and I'll jump ahead just a little bit for a brief moment to talk about NXT UK. One of the things that I think was such a positive to it, and I'd like for you to possibly share your thoughts on this. You had, Robbie Brookside. You had even Shawn Michaels, phoning in, but then you had Regal who would show up. You had Johnny Saint there. You had, I believe, Moss was there as well. Like, you had a lot of great minds there. Could you just talk just for a couple minutes about like some of the amazing minds you had there that at your disposal?
Oh man, right. It's mind blowing to think that the people we had coaching us, just the minds we had access to as well. Obviously getting to train with Rob in my early from 2010 to 2013 was incredible, but getting obviously working for WWE and then getting to train with Rob again, because each time they come over to the PC, sometimes they bring different coaches and things like that, but Rob was mainly one of them. So get to learn from Rob again was phenomenal. Another one that I really enjoyed to be around was Dave Taylor. We were lucky enough to have Dave Taylor to come over a few times, and he had some really, really cool stuff to show us, and we learned a lot from him for sure.
Did Finley ever come by?
For the UK tournament, he was there. That was the only time I saw him in regards to NXT UK. Sadly, they didn't bring him over, but he would have been phenomenal. He's one of my favourites. Yeah, he's one of my favourites. But I can't say enough good stuff about him all. I learned so much from the different people, just having so many different minds to cherry pick things from. Johnny Saint, what more can you say about him? It's an absolute phenomenon, and get to learn from him. It's just incredible to have him around and just pick his brain on different things. James Mason, another one, learned so much from. Johnny
Adrian
Moss.
Street, did he ever come by?
He did, yes. I think it was just before.
He had the documentary and stuff.
Yes, it was just before NXT Takeover Cardiff, and he came down to the PC. He was there for a few days, and we got he had a little talk with us all. He actually came. He was part of one of my classes, so he was doing some stuff with us in the ring, which was it was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, really cool.
So cool. Like, those are things that you can just look back on, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, and obviously even now, and you're just like, what? Who would have thought like the 10-year-old kid watching Raw could have these incredible moments? Like, it's so cool.
Like, baffles me, like seeing like William Regal, for example, like watching him on TV, and now you're locking up with him in the ring and something like that, and just like throwing you about. Just you pinch me kind of moments, because that's obviously I'm still a huge fan of professional wrestling. Big saying like they're my coaches, and it's like Shawn Michaels as well. We used to have these classes called school classes where we'd sit down and watch wrestling tapes, whether it was our TV matches or just other matches, and you'd have Shawn Michaels stood at the front of the room, like breaking down your match for you, something like that. It's just wild.
Yeah,
wild to think about.
Insane.
Yeah.
All right, going back in time now, back to what is more so your first official match. When you started. Let's see if I have the specific info here. I might not, but basically you started working with Brian Dixon's All Star Wrestling. Can you talk about that, because that's something that a lot of people know about, a lot of people, like fans in the United States, because they would hear the stories of the various guys going over in wrestling for All Star Wrestling. So you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So professional wrestling, I've came to find out it's the same everywhere. Very last minute. So the day before, I got a call saying, "Oh, do you want to wrestle tomorrow in Gravesend in London?" I was like, "Yeah," and I was absolutely. It's like someone plugged me in at the wall. I was just electric, ready to go. Couldn't think about anything else. Absolute mess of anxiety and everything else. Rob gave me a call and said, going to work for All Star tomorrow. So we went down to do that. Sadly, Brian wasn't there. That's okay.
All right, we're back. It's more technical issues, but you're talking about how you went to All Star and Brian Dixon wasn't there. Robbie Brookside brought you there, and then from there you were going to continue.
Okay. Yes. So All-Star Wrestling, Halloween 2012 was my official debut for All-Star Wrestling. I remember looking at the program when I got there. I was like, well, I'm not in this program. And they said I was working with Jimmy Meadows. And I was looking at this program. I was like, who is Spud Murphy? I was like, who is Spud Murphy? And I go, no, that's you. I thought I said my name's Jack Starz. No, you're Spud Murphy. So I was like, right, okay. And Spud Murphy had his wrestling debut for All-Star Wrestling that night, and he was never seen again after that night.
That's fantastic.
It was from my memory of it. I didn't film this run or anything. It felt very, and my memories of it aren't anything bad at all. I really enjoyed it. It was my first kind of experience of like such a big crowd as well, for such a prestigious place, and it blew my mind. And I was on a high for probably about 3 weeks after that, just reliving it in my head. I just felt so good about it, and I was like, this is what I'm meant to do.
And when you have a moment like that, did it kind of, not that you necessarily need the rejuvenating at that point, but when you have it, it's like, okay, yeah, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I want my life to be like.
Yeah. So from that first experience in 2010, I didn't have another match until Halloween 2012. That's the time, like, Rob would not put you in for a match unless he thought you were at a competent level and ready to go. So, a lot of time and effort had been put in to get to this point. So when it had actually finally come around, I was like, oh, I'm not letting this slide. Now I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show him I'm ready to go. So it was a huge day for me. Huge day.
Now, we talked about that wonderful name that you had, but we didn't really talk about, your first name and how you came up with it, or if somebody else gave it to you. Can you talk about your name, your initial gimmick, if you had one, and just, talk a little about becoming Jack Starz, who Jack Starz was, and from there.
Strap section for this one. How did it start? Give me a second to rejob this. So I didn't have an official idea of what I wanted to be in professional wrestling. I just wanted to wrestle for a start. So I was like, well, what can my name be? And I was trying to think of something that would, something that meant something to me. I just didn't want some random name. So obviously I used my first name, which is Jack. And I spoke briefly before about being a kid and being very, very shy and not having any confidence within myself. And for the longest time, I just wanted to. It was almost like I was trapped in a shell, and I just wanted to break out and show people. Like, everyone would tell me what I was. Like, oh, you shy, you're this, you're that. You can't. Like, especially being a professional wrestler, I get told all the time that I wouldn't make it as a professional wrestler. I'm too small. You're this, you're that, and it would get to me because I knew within myself that I could do that, and I didn't understand why anyone else didn't believe in me in that way. So to combat that, I used to like walking. So I'd go for walks at night time, just trying to clear my mind and decompress from it all. And there was something Rob used to always say to me, and he'd also say, just keep your chin up, lad, keep your chin up. Because he could see I was, shot of confidence at times, and he wanted to bring that out of me. So I remember walking, and if I'd ever walk past anyone, I would put my head down because I didn't want to, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what. I'd just keep walking, and I just have that coming playing from the head, keep your chin up. Literally, I'd just be walking with my head. I must look stupid, but I just keep my head up, and I'd just start repping that, and just keep trying to believe in myself. And obviously, walking at night time, I'd walk to this specific place, had a good view in my village, and I'd just look up and I'd see the stars, and it kind of like that saying of keeping your chin up and seeing them, it kind of became a kind of beacon of hope for me. So stars, Jack Starz. I like that. Let's go with that because it just felt right to me at the time.
No, that's a great story, and I love I love Robbie Brookside influence on it.
Mm.
I love the positive spin, because it's so easy to get down, especially if people are telling you, hey, you can't do this. It's so
Mm.
easy to say, well, I guess I can't do it. You know what I mean? But the fact that
That
you
is, yeah.
persevered.
Yeah. No, I had a lot of anger about that because I didn't like. Obviously, no one's going to like you saying, "No, you can't do something." But I just had an undying belief in myself. Like I can, like, just watch me. But yeah, that's how the name came about.
I want to talk about the UK scene in
Mm-hmm.
the early uh 2010s and that period, because obviously the UK scene will go on to have quite a big boom, but at this point I think it was still on its way there. I don't think it was quite there yet. What was it like for you? Because first of all, you were originally a fan of WWE. You weren't
Mm-hmm.
originally a fan of the local indie scene. So you're learning about the indie scene, and then you're on the indie scene. Can you talk about your impressions of it? Can you talk about the relation from England, Wales, Scotland? And you just because in the United States, we're kind of spoiled where we just have this huge land, the huge, unbelievable mass of land, and we have all these states. But obviously, England and Europe is very different. But there's similarities too. So
So for the first few years, I didn't work a great deal at all. We had a rule where if you're good at something, you don't do it for free, and we couldn't work for any less than I think it was like £30. And going to promoters and saying, "Oh, this is what I charge," or whatever, and they just weren't willing to pay a new trainee that had never seen wrestle before £30. So it was very sporadic. We worked, so it'd be months and months in between. So between like 2012 and I think it was like 2014, that's when it really started to taking them. I didn't really get to see a great deal of it. I got to work for places like there was some regular all-star bookings. The place in the South Coast called SWF. We worked once. Premier Promotions. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they do the old traditional World of Sport round kind of style matches. That's the whole show. I really enjoyed them. That was one of my first matches as well. But yeah, it was very, very sporadic. But from what I remember, I'm trying to think who was about at that time. I think it was like first, it was Gangrel over.
Gangrel would come over.
Yeah, Gangrel would come over for All Star. We also have like David Finlay before he went off to Japan. Just people from all over the world, like All Star, like people wanted to come and work for All Star. Like for years they've done it. But they were the ones that stood out to me around then that I remember. But I didn't really get an exposure to the rest of the scene to know what was going on. So there was only a few places. Like I go to training on Sunday and I'd turn up to these shows, and that was pretty much it.
When Gangrel or Dave Taylor would come by, because you talked about being shy, but you also have the drive to learn. Were you the kind of person who would talk to them, ask them to look at your match, or were you the kind of person who would just be like, this is, an attitude error, sorry, I'm not even going to talk to him besides show some respect and then hide?
Like still, I was very, very much hidden in my shell at this point. These guys, I'd say hello to them. They'd be very, very reluctant. I was just absolutely terrified of everyone. Yeah, it was. I'd say hello. I'd be respectful. I'd watch shows and things like that. But other than that, I'd run and hide. That's just the person I was at the time. I was absolutely terrified.
This might sound weird to you,
Mm.
but what you might not realize is, for some people in the locker room today, you're that guy. You were on NXT UK TV, you know what I mean? And I know that's going to sound weird to you, but it is true. Like in England, NXT UK was on TV. You had these huge events, WWE Star, Jack Starz, and obviously now, but for you, if a young guy's in the locker room and they want to learn from you, are you the kind of person who's like, yeah, talk to me, ask me, or are you the kind of person who's like, I'll tell you if I see something?
No, like I have you have some people that come up to you and ask you what's the match. Like, regardless, I try and watch every show I'm on. I try and watch every match because I like to see what's going on, like see different people working, what they're doing, and things like that. So if people want feedback and want advice, then I'm more than happy to help them in that way. I have some guys and girls send me matches to watch that they filmed and things like that. I love doing that as well because it's an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to think about things. Yeah, I'm not the kind of person who go to someone like, can I give you some advice or whatnot? If people want it, like, it's there, come and ask. Yeah, that's pretty much how I work.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight because we do, like, a lot of the people who do watch the channel are either people who want to get into the business or they're young guys in the business. So just, wrestling's such a funny thing because there's heat, and you're so scared to upset anybody, at a certain point in your career where even if you're as polite as could be, you're like, oh man, am I going to do something wrong? Am I going to mess up? So it's good to have that reinforcement, like, hey, no, talk to
I've
me.
Lost you again. I apologize.
No problem. What's the last thing you heard?
So it always disappears and then it kind of comes really quick.
Oh, like, okay. But what was the last thing you heard? What was I already in the diatribe about learning?
It was literally the first sentence she said. I think it was about the podcast and new people wanting to learn.
Yeah, what I was trying to say, and we're back, guys, again. Sorry for the hiccups. A lot of people who watch the channel are either just starting out in the business or they've been for a little bit or they're learning. And it's good that you're offering that advice and helping them because, wrestling's funny where you're always scared of getting heat. You're scared of saying the wrong thing and, messing everything up. So some people are going to be scared to talk to a veteran because they're like, okay, well, if he doesn't like me or if I say the wrong thing. So, it's good to encourage them to be like, hey, no, try to learn from somebody who has experience.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree.
So thank you for, offering that insight and passing it on to other people. Now, one thing I did want to talk about early on in your career, two guys I saw that you worked with who went on to great success and you've interacted with them a bunch later on, the Coffee Brothers. Could you talk about working with them? And let's see if I have the year. I don't have the year, but I'm guessing at 2015-ish. I think that might be it. Could you talk about working with them, their development over time, then and later
on? So the first time I ever worked with them was my first kind of little tour of Scotland, which was in November 2013. They've been down to the school before to see Rob, and I'd met them briefly there, and I thought they were great guys, incredible hard workers. And then I got this opportunity to go to Scotland, and I remember on the travels up there, I was traveling with a guy called Jimmy Meadows and Wild Boar, and Jimmy, like, it was me and Jimmy tagging against those two that night, and he was trying to fill me full of fear, saying, "Oh, they're gonna absolutely batter you tonight. You should see the finish they do. Oh, he's gonna knock you out." He was absolutely just ripping me, terrifying me all the way there to the point I was shaking when I turned up at the venue, thinking,
"Oh, so it was working.
They're gonna kill me." So, yeah, I feel sorry for them having to work with me that night because I was absolutely rotten. I felt, completely out of my depth. That was the first time I'd ever worked anyone outside of the wrestling school as well. But they were incredibly forgiving, and they've been incredibly helpful. And I class them as very good friends within wrestling as well. I'm always a joy to be around, and it's incredible to see what they're doing now because it couldn't happen to better people. They're incredible hard workers, incredible minds for this, and just really good guys.
Was Wolfgang around then too? Like, I'm not sure when you might have worked with him or not, but like sharing the locker room when you were in Scotland, did you happen to see him there or not so much?
I didn't meet Wolfgang until I think the night before the press conference of the UK tournament. Okay. I was sharing a room with him, and in the middle of the night, I heard this bang on the door and opened it. There's this big shadowed figure stood there, and it was Wolfgang. And that was my first meeting of him.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I love Wolfgang. He's it was one of my favorite people at NXT UK. Really good man. Very good man.
Now, you talked about how early on you weren't getting a lot of bookings. One
Mhm.
year that I saw that you had a lot of bookings, because I used a couple different sites for reference, but they're not going to have everything. So,
Yeah.
it's impossible. They had a lot of stuff for you around 2017. It seemed like your schedule exploded, at least from someone on the outside looking in from the notes I saw. You just started working a lot more. What caused you to start working a lot more? Was it just making a name for yourself and people were more willing to book you? Were you pushing more for it? What happened?
Yeah, it was I was getting pretty busy around then. So it was just after the UK tournament. And I was reaching out to people more and more. I was just like, right, if we're going to have a go at this, it's going to be up to full whack, use this momentum from the UK tournament and just go with it. So I was messaging everyone, trying to get a foot in the door wherever I could go. Started working a lot in Birmingham for Kamikaze Pro. They had a hell of a lot of dates there, and I got to work. That was the first kind of exposure to more indie style, and get to work with different people there was definitely a really good challenge. But yeah, we were going all over the place. I was absolutely loving it. Summer season as well, worked for All Star Wrestling. I think that was one of my first full summers there, getting to do the camps, and I don't think I've ever. I learned so much.
One of the matches that you had, and I don't know if I have it in my notes. I don't think I do. You randomly wrestled in Italy. Could you talk about
Yes.
how did that come about? I'm not sure exactly when it was, but I saw it and I was going to put it in the notes, and I was like, it's just a one-off. But no, I'm too interested. I have to know how that came together.
Yeah, I think it was 2017 in June.
Oh, so it works.
Yeah, I just remember getting a message on Instagram one day saying, "Do you want to come in? Do you want to come wrestle in Italy on this day?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on then. I'll do that."
Very much.
I can't remember if that was my first proper international booking, but yeah, it was a really cool experience. Absolutely loved Italy.
I think you might have done Germany beforehand because I did see that in the notes as well.
Yeah, in 2014 we went over. So my coach at the time when Rob went away, Darren Walsh, who worked as Thunder in the UK, he kind of looked after the school while Rob was away, and Rob and Darren used to work a lot in Germany on the what's it called? Can't think of the name of it, but they put a big tent up in Hanover, and they'd wrestle for weeks on end in the same venue.
The catch. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Not, so I can't think of the name. I don't know why it's just.
That's not CW. Well, I know what you're talking about either way, though.
Yeah. Well, that promotion at the time was called European Wrestling Promotions. When we went in 2014, it was run by Eki Eckstein, and we went out there and we kind of did a joint school few day camp, and then we did a show. And that was we all got crammed into a minibus, and then got basically drove to Germany from England. It took like 20 hours because we went the wrong way.
Wow.
But yeah, that was a really cool experience. So I guess that was my first kind of exposure to wrestling in Europe.
Was it a drive trip to Italy too? Because
oh no,
apologize for my ignorance on the geography.
No, I feel for you guys having to drive around in America because it's such a huge place. But yeah, thankfully, England's a lot smaller, and where I live, it's only a few hours each way. But for Italy, I got flown in, so that was nice.
Was that your first flying experience? Because that's always such a big win for a wrestler. When you're flown in for the first time, you're like, okay, I'm a star now.
I was sitting there playing that. Yeah, it was really, yeah, that was the first time I'd been flown in anywhere to wrestle. I got to explore Naples for a few days, and then we drove to Rome for the show. It was actually a really bad thunderstorm that day, and it pushed the show back a few hours. So it'd gone like 10 o'clock, I think. It was like 10:30 at night. And that was the first match. And I was just going out then. This is when the storm stopped. But they'd lost the venue. So we ended up putting a ring up next to the side of a train track. And it's really, really sketchy place. But yeah, wrestled next to a train track in a car park in somewhere just outside of Rome in Italy.
That's so wild. And, you know, those experiences are so cool, you know, because as much as working in WWE and AEW is obviously the goal, financially it makes the most sense. Sometimes I think the coolest journey are like Matt Cross, who's been on like a million foreign tours and, you know, the most random places you would ever expect and just traveling all over the world. I'm like, on one hand, obviously that's not as lucrative. You're not going to be as remembered for it. But what about the life experiences going to so many
Oh,
weird places? It's awesome.
yeah, the places like that, they're where you get stories from. You know, these nice, these beautiful venues you go to. You never really like. It's rare you get stories like that, but the real ones are when you're wrestling by the side of a car park or by the side of a train track or wherever else. You know, wrestled in horse stables as well once.
Of course,
Yeah, some horses were watching us wrestle. Yeah, it's mad.
that's fantastic. You know, with some indie shows, you know, you might end up having more horses in the stables than you're going to have fans in the crowd. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's the fun of indie wrestling.
yeah.
All right, we talked about it. I want to get to it. It's the big one. December 15th, 2016, Triple H held a conference at the O2 Arena announcing the United Kingdom Championship Tournament in early 2017. Now, you had a participation in that we'll get to, but before that, how long before did you hear about it? Before his announcement, or maybe you heard about it after his announcement, during the announcement, and what were your initial thoughts?
So I've been working with WWE sporadically since 2015.
Okay.
So when Rob was coaching America, they come over and they do international tryouts at whatever the venues they were working. WWE were going to be working TV at in the spring and the autumn of each year. So because I knew all the drills and like roles and things like that, they brought me in to basically lead the tryouts. So I'd lead the role, show everyone what they're doing, and then everyone else basically copy. So from like 2015 till it was later on than the UK tournament. It was like 2018. I was working as I was doing that. I was doing pretty much every tryout for them. So I was getting to meet people, make some good connections, things like that. Yeah. So it was around that time. Like I didn't get called for. I think I might have actually done the tryouts just before that. Well, they might not have tryouts that year. I can't remember. But I remember being in the gym one day and my phone was on the bench next to me. I was doing this exercise with a dumbbell over my head and I could feel my phone vibrating. I looked, I could just see Stamford, Connecticut calling. And then he dropped the dumbbell on my head, trying to get it off. And I missed the call. And I was like, no.
What a bad combination. Not only did you drop it on your head, but you missed the call doing it too.
Yeah, it was, I was like, oh my God, what was that? I had a voicemail from William Regal and he just asked me to call him back. So I called him back straight away and just had a little chat. And he said something was coming, didn't know what was happening yet, but they'd let us know in the next couple of days. And then we got wind that we need to go to London. We're going to have a press conference. I still don't think they told us what they were doing yet until like the day before. But yeah, we went down to London and it went from there.
So cool. You know, it was such a big moment for so many people to get that kind of spotlight. And again, you played a really crucial role, which some people don't. I didn't realize this, and I'm glad I learned it. You were technically, you know, if you count the United Kingdom Championship Tournament as part of NXT UK, and you were technically the first match of the entire brand. Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, it's, so the deal I had, they had obviously the main people they wanted for the actual tournament, and had a couple of guys as reserves in case any of those got injured and stuff. So I was one of the reserves for the tournament. But they had us work the dark match before they went live on the first night of the tournament. I teamed up with Chris Tyler against Ringo Ryan and Tiger Ali. But yeah, it was, man, what a nerve-wracking experience that was. Like the Empress Ballroom, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, absolute beautiful building. And I remember being stuck behind the curtain. There was a guy counting us in and saying, "All right, okay, off you go," whatever. And I remember turning to Chris and I was like, "Do you want to go first?" And he was like, "No, you can do it." I like that because it's I felt like I was like the first one through that curtain. Obviously, like the first ever match for the brand, and the first one through the curtain. It was just a really kind of cool little experience, and just the amount of people crammed into that room as well was insane. I'd never been in front of a crowd that big, so yeah, that experience was it flew by like that. But everyone was really happy with it, and yeah, it's what a wild weekend that was. Incredible.
I could just see from your facial expression that it holds such a special place for you, and it should. That's so cool. Like that's something like you can never have taken away from you, no matter where things go, where things have been. It's like you'll be the forever. You are the person who kickstarted that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's. I'll be honest, it's still sinking in. You know, when I think about it, I forget sometimes, and it reminds me. It's pretty cool.
That's a big part of the reason why I love doing this, is because, you know, when you're on the grind, it can be so easy to only look ahead, only look at what you want to do, only look at where you want to be, that sometimes it's really hard to look back at the things you're like. Brian Kendrick is a guy who he's been wrestling for decades, and he's done some of the coolest things that anybody could ever do in wrestling, and he never sits back and thinks about it. So when I have him on the show a few times, I'm like, no, you need to think about the things you've done, because even if it's just for this 5 minutes right now when we're talking about it, like, you've done so much, and I want you to just realize, like, it's special. It's really special.
Yeah. Now, Brian's incredible. Now,
what, you know, since I brought him up anyway, and since he's a channel favorite, you know, he was on NXT UK a few times. Did you interact with him much when he was there?
Yeah, so he came in, he was doing some coaching at the PC a couple of times. He came over, and he was a great addition to have around, because it says he's got an absolute phenomenal mind for this industry. We got to watch some school classes with him, and the thing I liked about him is he's very brutally honest as well. Like, it's, you know, questioning why he was doing things, like why are you doing that. One thing with me, I remember sitting with him and watching the tape, and he was just like asking like what my character was, and I'll be honest, for the longest times I ain't got a clue. Like, I knew like who I was, but I didn't really know who Jack Starz was or what he brought to the table. And Brian really started getting me thinking about that.
That's such valuable insight, and you know, he's so smart, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, even now after all these years, he was just, you know, helping out Bad Bunny for the Damian Priest thing, and which is incredible in of itself, you know. So it's so cool that he was there and working with you and so hands-on. You know, you just were talking about Brian Kendrick and the fact that, you know, he put into your head, like, what is your character? Who are you? You know, and it got your brain going. I want to talk about, and again, we're going to have to wrap things up fairly soon. You've been very gracious for your time. Hopefully we can do a part 2 in the future. But I want to talk about your character change from Jack Starz to who you are now, how that happened, and what you think of the change.
So that initial conversation with Brian was like a long kind of list of chain reaction that kind of pointed me in this direction. So long story short, it came to when I got released from WWE, when NXT UK wrapped up. And after that phone call, it was like something drained out of me. And then I felt just a rush of energy come through me. Like, right, let's get to work. Like, you can be and do whatever you want now. So let's show them what you have to offer. Like, the goal was to up my stock and like hopefully one day go back and show them like, okay, this guy is the real deal. You know, you can go. Not that I don't believe that they valued me in anything, but I want to show that, you know, I have a lot more I can bring to the table. So that was the idea behind it. Right? If you're going to do something, you're going to have to do it now. So this is my biggest swing at making something of myself. So with this character, I wanted it to, you know, I wanted to be more real to myself. With Jack Starz, I always felt like I was like trying to portray someone else, and I wanted this character to be more me, more qualities that, you know, of who I actually am. From that quite terrified kid, I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to be larger than life. I want to be different. I want people to, you know, when they're leaving a venue or come to a show, like, they remember who I am, just for how I look, how I move, like just my presence in there. And I think it added this character has added all those, start to add to those particular bullet points when I meet.
Even if you're on a poster, like you stand out. Like this is no disrespect to anybody else, but you know, if a poster, if they throw in, because you know how indie wrestling posters are, they'll throw in the 20 people on it. If there's you know, of those 20 people, you know, 15 or 18 are just going to be regular wrestler number 1, 2, and 3, and obviously that's no disrespect, it's wrestling, but you're going to stand out.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's what's one of the biggest things about it. You know, you stands out, you look different from everyone else. And that's how I felt when I initially first shaved my beard off and just looked like anyone else. When I went to NXT UK, and I felt like I lost any kind of individuality. Now I want to get it back. You know, it is a business about standing out and being different, and all these different things. So many different things from different sides that I've been inspired by. Like the Night King from Game of Thrones is a big influence on the look, but it's also a lot of real life traits for myself. Just turned up to 11. You know, I love just being able to. I love being weird. I'm a weird guy, and being able to go out and portray this mad ice king is it's incredibly. I feel rejuvenated in, you know, I feel I'm doing something different. I'm standing out, and that's the main goal.
Is it almost freeing for you to be able to go from, you know, when you are Jack Starz, you know, you're like you said, you're kind of just a guy, a very talented guy, but just a guy. And now you can like kind of channel all that energy that maybe because you've always been shy. You said, you know, you grew up a shy person. Now you can just let all that energy you have inside of you just explode with this character. Is that like freeing for you?
Well, that's it. Like I spoke about earlier, being like people telling me, "Oh, you're not charismatic." That was one of the biggest ones. You're not charismatic. You got nothing about you. You're boring or whatever. It's like, and I can assure you, I'm far from boring. I've got a lot to bring to the table. One of my biggest goals in NXT UK was inspired by Vic Joseph. This one day we were doing this like improv promo class, and then he just kept throwing random people into this scenario, and then he got me up and told me like, "You're naked, get in there." And then this kind of running joke of naked Jack Starz came in, and I absolutely loved that promo. I was like, right, before I leave this brand, like the one thing I'm going to do is get naked on this TV on this show. And one of my last vignettes with Dave was me running away with my bare ass out. So that was a big win for me. Like I can show these different sides to me. Now I've been this serious wrestler for so long. I wanted to show, you know, I've got a lot more I can bring to the table, and that's, you know, no, it is freeing. It is very freeing because for all these years I've been told I'm not this, I'm not that. Like, shut up, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm about, and that's what this character is all about. I'm gonna be, and I'm gonna do what I feel is right, and I've never felt more right with this character.
I love that. I love that attitude. Like I said, we're only ask a few more things and then get you out of here. Dave Mastiff is someone I want to talk. If we do a part 2, hopefully we can, because he's someone that I've been in touch with that hopefully he'll be interviewed on the channel in the near future as well. So it's pretty cool that I get the tag team, you know what I mean? Back, hopefully, maybe not back to back, but within reason. But I want to go back again to the championship tournament era. The contract situation I always find very interesting because you know, obviously you had, you know, the golden ones, you know, Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, obviously, you know, they were incredible, and look what they're doing. They're still incredible to this very day. But I'm sure there was different opportunity levied to different people. You know, you might have had a few who were, you know, definitely in. You had some who were kind of in, and then you had others who were like, we'll get back to you. What was it for you, and could you just talk about it at that time?
So obviously, like I said, that the chosen ones that they invested a lot into, and that's fine. That's how pretty much every form of entertainment is, especially professional wrestling. I wouldn't lie, like if you're not aiming for that, you're not aiming to be the top guy, and then you know what you're doing. What's the goal? Like maybe some people are just happy to do that, but I was always one that, you know, I always aim for the top. Like I want to be the man. That's the goal. And so like seeing these guys do it, like it filled me full of drive to want that too. From my time with WWE and NXT UK, I pride myself on being adaptable. That's something that William Regal always spoke about. Is like, you have guys that come, they'll work for a few years, and they'll go off into the sunset. I want to be a journeyman. I want to be here for the long haul. I want to be able to adapt to any situation given, and I believe that's what I did in NXT UK. Whatever opportunity they gave me, I ran with. So obviously, I got the honour of and the trust to be able to have a lot of debut matches in NXT UK that they probably wouldn't have trusted with other people. But when other opportunities came, like working with Piper, working with Pretty Deadly, working with Tyler, working with Dave, for instance, I felt like, right, this is, you get more momentum now, grab the ball and run with it.
It was great. It was great to see, again, hopefully in a part 2, we have a whole lot of still to talk about. Like, one of the things I definitely want to get into is just your rise, because at one point you were just kind of the guy losing in a minute here and there. Mm-hmm. And eventually, by the end of it, you were regular match time, winning matches, in a tag team, getting promos. Like, the rise is great to see, and I definitely want to dive into that. I want to dive into, fighting with my family is something I definitely want to talk about. NXT Europe, I definitely want to get your thoughts on in the future. More details on it ending, the pandemic. There's so much. So hopefully I'm lucky enough to talk to you again in the future. But I do love wrapping these things up before we get to the plugs one more time with a question that I'll ask. If we do another interview, I'll ask again. Like Sal Renaro, we're going to have our 4th interview, and I'm going to ask him every single time, what does the future look like for Jack Starz or Jack Sellstrom?
Well, for Jack Sellstrom, sky's the limit. I'm seeing what's coming out. I'll take every day as it comes at the minute, and I've got some very exciting things in the pipeline. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Some very exciting things coming.
What about as a person, as a human, and just in wrestling in general? Like, is it, because you kind of just touched on it, but is it the case of you want to be in wrestling for as long as you physically can?
This is my why, man. Like when I left NXT UK, I thought, the thought of getting just a regular job just sickened me. It's not what I'm like. I'm a big believer in doing what you're passionate about, and I can't. Like, the only thing I'm passionate about is professional wrestling, and that's what I intend to make my life all about.
Wonderful. And with someone with such drive and such a great mind, with so much experience training, the great thing is, with wrestlers, when your body gives out, a lot of times there's nothing left to do. But there's producing, there's training, there's someone like you I could see in the business for 20 years more, 30 years, you know what I mean? And some people would be like, oh, please don't wish that on me, but you're the kind of person who's like, no, I want that. So I love that. Yeah,
I'll go as long as possible, man. Like my goal now is to be an active competitor, but down the line, the thought of being a producer, a coach, it's that's exciting to me too. So that's something I'd definitely like to explore after professional wrestling.
And I'm just going to throw this out into the universe. NXT Europe, just throwing it out there for anybody who hears this. NXT Europe, just throwing it out there. Can we hit plugs one more time? Tell people where to check you out in the school again, please.
Yep. You can check me out at Jack_Sellstrom on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, or Jack_Sellstrom on Twitter. And if you're an aspiring professional wrestler, if you're a professional wrestler, show standard already, and you want to come train down in Leicester, we've got a brilliant school called FTGU, From the Ground Up School of Wrestling. We have 6 classes going a week. You're more than welcome down to join a great community of people.
Jack, thank you so much for your time. Guys, please check him out. Follow him on, obviously, the social medias. Check out the school. We will have links in the description for all of his stuff where you can check him out. He's nice enough to be on the show. Be nice enough to show some support. And check us out on Twitter at Armbars Sidebar, on Instagram at Armbars and Sidebars. We're also on Threads, but I haven't been on there yet, to be honest with you, besides just setting up the account. But we are there, so follow us there. And, of course, follow us on YouTube at Armbars and Sidebars. Subscribe to the channel. Comments help, I hear. It's good for the YouTube algorithm and all that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're a wonderful guest. Your story is so interesting. There's still so much to cover. The fact that we were able to talk for over an hour and we're only scratching the surface shows just, what a career you've had already. And the best part is it's just getting started. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Until next time, guys. Later.